What books can you think of where a main or even major character is disabled? Not counting PTSD or depression. Hello guys and welcome to I Love Reading, a channel about interesting book-related subreddit topics. If you love our content, please press the like button, leave a comment and lastly, if you're new here, subscribe to our channel. Now let's get started. I have noticed while reading that the number of main characters with any sort of disability is slim. Unless I am forgetting any. I only recall a version of Little Red Riding Hood that came out recently where the main character was a girl in her early 20s who only had one leg and had an artificial leg. She is the main character and along with two kids she meets on the way, tries to survive a plague and bandits while making their way to her grandmother's house. I also recently got a book today called Novice Dragoneer about an orphan who has a stutter who wants to be a dragon rider and has to compete against others from wealthy families. It seems the only disabilities authors want to use is PTSD and depression. Those tropes are getting old and worn out. Meanwhile, I am surprised with all of the main characters I've read it's hard to find any of them with any sort of disability, minus the PTSD or depression. What books can you think of where a main or even major character is disabled? Not counting PTSD or depression. Lots of literary classics actually. Have you read of Mice and Men? Flowers for Algernon? Day of the Triffids? Left Hand of Darkness? Dickens, okay he's problematic. Less literary, off the top of my head. Tyrion from Song of Ice and Fire, many characters from Harry Potter. N.K. Jemisin's Inheritance trilogy. Second book is from the point of view of a blind, well sorta. Certainly she doesn't have normal vision, woman. Series has won multiple awards, Jemisin's very good SF fantasy Carol Berg's protagonists. Collegia Magica series third book is from point of view of a recently blinded man who also has a near unusable hand. Breath and Bone the protagonist is addicted to a drug that turns pain into pleasure. Excellent unusual fantasy, one of my favorite authors. Lois McMaster Bujold Miles Vorkosigan is very short and has fragile bones, as well as being a hyper-git. Long series, space opera, highly recommended. Kazaril in the Chalian series is aging and has multiple physical disabilities. The Quaddies in Falling Free are genetically engineered mutants. Bujold's characters are immensely likable, well-rounded and believable people. SF fantasy. Circle of Light by Tanya Huff, protagonist has an intellectual handicap, Blood Price series, the prot has RP which is slowly blinding her. Generally urban fantasy. Elizabeth Bear almost all of her characters. Hammered features an older female engineer with a lot of prosthetics. Sansom's Shortlake series. Protagonist practices law in the 16th century and has a noticeably hunched spine. Excellent historical fiction detective. Bit of a niche genre, but I like it. Hope that helps a bit. Vorkosigan's series of hard science fiction by Lois McMaster Bujold. Main character has birth defects. Very complex, well-drawn character. You haven't noticed a young adult trend of ciclet, then? I'm thinking Fault in Our Stars, 5 Feet Apart, Wonder, Lenny's Book of Everything. Heck, I'm pretty sure that even in The Hunger Games, Katniss suffered significant ongoing hearing loss after that poorly executed explosion in the first book. Jane Yolland's One-Armed Queen and Barbara Kingsolver The Poisonwood Bible. But yes, I absolutely agree we need more characters with disabilities and stories that aren't about overcoming disability. So much this. I'm really enjoying the suggestions on this thread and I'm secondly planning on checking some out, but I think it's really important to have disabled characters in a range of stories, doing a range of things not just being diagnosed and then learning to manage their disability. It's so ironic that we are having this conversation. I just picked up Cameron Hurley's The Mirror Empire because it's the first book in a series and the third one is coming out soon and I wanted to refresh my memory. There is a main character in that book who is disabled, but I completely forgot about it because it's just part of her backstory. Not a book, but the TV show The Good Doctor follows the story of a young surgeon with autism. A significant part of why there aren't many books featuring characters with disabilities beyond anxiety, depression, PTSD is because there isn't a widely accepted portrayal of them in a popular common culture. It is much easier to find tropes for disabilities that have long been portrayed or misportrayed and use them than it is to try and create a character that would require true research on the topic. For an interesting subversion of this look at Othernet, the main character is blind, but with the help of an implant on the retina and in the prefrontal cortex, she can see the Wi-Fi around her and eventually the real world as well. They explore autism in this book too, with her father being autistic, and they explore the potential that she might be as well and how difficult it is to diagnose autism in women. My apologies for the long post, just a conversation that I believe should be more common. I totally agree with original poster, and I'm really excited for the literary world to become more inclusive and for realistic portrayals to become more common. I think that's mainly because it's hard writing about a disability you do not have, and since most writers aren't disabled, you get not a lot of disabled characters. Although I have to say, it seems that retardation is more of a theme than being crippled. At least it comes up more often. Are you talking about a specific age group? And any specific disabilities? Silent Melody by Mary Ballow. The main heroine is deaf. Still Alice by Lisa Genova, early onset Alzheimer's and left neglected, one side of her brain is impaired in an accident. Small Steps by Peg Carrot is about the author's experiences when she contracted polio as a kid. Edit. PETA loses a leg in the first Hunger Games book, though not in the movies. The Arcadia Project, a 3-part series by Miss Hellbaker, features a protagonist that needs a wheelchair or sometimes leg braces and crutches. The disability is a plot point, but written in as way more than a plot device. She also has a good portrayal of borderline personality disorder and a few other disabilities. There is some PTSD and depression, but not in the cliched way of lots of other books. In one of my novels, I have used a polydactylic character. He has 6 fingers at each hand. I hadn't been aware of Gattaca when I invented him. In a list of ancient Roman cognomina, I had hit on the name Sedigitus Sixfinger, applied it to my MC's boss companion, simply because I found its meaning so peculiar, and only later it occurred to me. What if this man really had 6 fingers? How would that affect his biography? It helped that children with 6 toes have been born at least twice in my wife's family. Polydactyly is a genetically dominant trait. Early literature has a lot of it, but unfortunately many times physical disabilities were used as a shorthand for either an internal shortcoming, think Richard III, or a symbol of self-harm, outward destruction, like Ahab and Moby Dick. In Lady Chatterley's Lover, Clifford Chatterley's paralysis is treated more like a horror of life and less like a lived experience. More recently there's José Saramago's Blindness, which is a great book, but definitely problematic in how it deals with its central theme. In contemporary literature, though, I'd say Geek Love by Catherine Dunn examines prejudices against and the exclusion of people with physical differences in American life. There's also a book Good Kings Bad Kings, which puts characters with disabilities at the front of the narrative. Guardians of the Flame series by Joel Rosenberg. Sort of anyway. One of the main characters has severe something, multiple sclerosis maybe, and he is in a wheelchair because of it. I say sort of because it's a series where a bunch of people gets magically transported to a fantasy realm where they become the characters they were role-playing. Everyone else wants to get back but he doesn't. David Eddings' The Losers is about a man who becomes disabled. There are a number of stories about disabled people, either by starting out that way or becoming so. It's almost a trope in a lot of ways. But it's hard for people to relate to someone who is blinded or paralyzed by an injury, so that's not the typical path that an author takes. I'm currently reading a sci-fi, time travel crime mystery by Tom Sweterlich titled The Gone World, featuring a female investigator with a prosthetic leg. I'm only 130 pages into it, but it's pretty good so far. Robert Galbraith, J.K. Rowling, has a crime series featuring a private detective with the same disability. I'm not sure if this fully meets your criteria, but Roland from Stephen King's Dark Tower series is handicapped after the first book. A crab monster lops off his index finger and thumb of his right hand. It presents difficulties for him throughout the rest of the series, which is a big deal for a gunslinger. It's probably not exactly what you're looking for, but after the accident, you definitely feel like he's not whole afterwards. He's no longer a true slinger because he can only shoot one-handed, but he finds a way to overcome and go on. And why should there be one? There are 1.4 billion Indians. Yet, very few Indian characters. Same goes for Chinese or any other rationality. Book aren't about finer details of character body, their sex or color, but about them, there is a difference. Books are about characters, their world, and how these play with each other. If you focus on whether a character is disabled or not, whether he is Polish, or American, or gay, or space pirate, then in my opinion you would miss out whole book. I recently read The Tartar Steppe, and I feel like I have lived life of Giovanni Drogo and can still feel the dampere of Castle. Yet I was never there. I am neither in army nor in Italy, but I have lived a life as Giovanni Drogo. The barometer on which the books are tested is whether they can transcend in current human division and appeal to something so common, so humane that they will be alive and felt by people in ages to come. The magnum opus of Hindi literature are called Kaljayee, one which transcends time. And that's why we still read 5,000-year-old books. There you have it, books read by Redditors where a main or even major character is disabled. With the exception of PTSD or depression. Note: books talked about in the video can be accessed through the link on the description below. Thank you for watching till the end. If you loved the video, don't forget to press the like button and also subscribe to I Love Reading. See you on the next video.